For number 33, before I find the inverse, I threw the square root of 4 minus x squared into the calculator, and you're going to get a graph that looks like this. So it's like it is a half circle, what's called a semicircle. Okay. And on the calculator, above the window button, there's a thing called table set. And when you go in there, you're going to set the table start for 0.5 and what's called the delta table for 0.5 as well. And then if you press second graph, you'll go into the table itself, you should see a table that looks like this, okay, with the given values. Okay. And so you could just plot these points right from here to get the graph that I now have already just graphed here on the screen. Okay. Now, it tells us that x is only to be between 0 and 2, which is to say we don't want any negative values for x or anything bigger than 2, which means I don't want any of these x values because these are all negative. Well, if I can't have those x values, then I can't have any of the corresponding y values, which means I don't want the left side of this semicircle. I want to actually, I don't want to just dash it. I want to completely get rid of it because I can't have it. Okay, because of this statement here. X is between 0 and 2. Okay, so that's the only graph. Alright, so now if I interchange the values, so let me do this in blue. So I'm going to graph these before I get around to solving the inverse. Alright, so 0, 2 becomes 2, 0. 0.51, 0.9 becomes 1.9, 0.5, 1.71, 1.3, 1.5, and 0, 2. Alright, so if I plot those, here's 2, 0 in blue, 1.9, 0.5, so that's going to be there. 1.7, comma 1, that's going to be there. 1.3, 1.5, so that's going to be there. And 0, 2. So the inverse graph is going to look exactly like the original graph. Okay, so now let's actually solve for part A. We want to find the inverse. So instead of writing f of x, I'm going to write y equals square both sides sorry, let me interchange the x and y values first. Sorry about that. So x equals square root of 4 minus y squared. Alright, then I'm going to take that and square both sides because I'm trying to solve for y by itself. So x squared equals 4 minus y squared. So this outside square cancels the square root. Let's see, I'm going to subtract the 4 from both sides. So x squared minus 4 equals negative y squared. Multiply everything by negative 1. So negative x squared plus 4 equals y squared. And again, I'm going to flip the whole equation because I like my y squared on the left. Instead of writing negative x squared plus 4, I'm going to write it as 4 minus x squared. Same thing. And then square root both sides. So plus or minus, because anytime you introduce a square root, you have to say plus or minus. 4 minus x squared. Okay. Now, let's see. I'm going to scroll up to the graph here. Notice the graph in blue, all of my values are positive again. There are no negative values. So, even though when you solve this, you have to say plus or minus when you put in the square root, the inverse of the original function can only have the positive values. So I don't want the negative. So my inverse function is just this. So f inverse of x. So you can drop the negative on the outside. So that is your inverse function. And let's see. Okay. So now for the domain and range. Okay, so I'm just going to real quick. So my circle's here. So in this case, they're going to be the same again. For f of x, the domain is, well, they gave it to us. They told us to stay between 0 and 2. Okay. So coming up here, so that means we're just going this way, 0 to 2. The range is also just from 0 to 2. Okay, because the graph only exists going up and down from 0 to 2. So 0 is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to 2. For the inverse, well, if you interchange those statements, you again happen to get the same domain and range. So domain and range.